TomoNews presents Landslides.
At least 20 killed in India landslide. Rescue workers are struggling to gain access to a remote part of northeast India that has been devastated by a landslide. The landslide hit West Bengal's Darjeeling district early Wednesday morning. At least 20 people have reportedly been killed due to the destruction. The area's remote location, incessant rains and damage from the landslide have made it difficult for authorities to reach the area. The landslide has levelled homes, blocked roads and disrupted the Darjeeling Himalayan train service. Excavators are working to clear up the mess. Reports suggest that the death toll is likely to rise as the search for survivors continues. Elsewhere, a red alert has been issued following a flood-like situation in Jalpaiguri, another district in West Bengal. Local authorities have said they are monitoring the situation.
This footage of a humongous boulder tumbling down a Taiwan mountain and almost striking a passing car went viral almost immediately after it hit the web. But what many people don't know is that there is another, much larger rock still teetering on top of the mountain. The second boulder is dangerously close to tumbling down 150 meters into about 75 homes and shops below. It weighs about 2,000 tons, which is roughly the equivalent of 200 African elephants. To remove the threat, experts plan to bore holes into the boulder and fill it with a special material, which will expand inside the rock, eventually forcing it to shatter into many smaller, more manageable pieces. Because clearly this thing is impossible to move in one piece. And it's unlikely that anyone will be as lucky as this driver again.
Man crushed to death by giant boulder. Remember this iconic scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark? Well, it happened on Monday night in real life, but the person facing the giant boulder wasn't as lucky as Indiana Jones. The accident happened when 47-year-old Paul Camus Jr. was working on removing a giant boulder from his yard in Raymond, New Hampshire. Camus' wife called his phone when she couldn't find him on Monday night, but found his phone at home, which was unusual. She left the house and found him unconscious and not breathing in the backyard at around 7 p.m. and called 911. Apparently, Camus had been trying to remove the boulder since June. On Monday, the boulder became dislodged and pinned him against the wall of a ditch. A tow truck was needed to remove the boulder, which weighed an estimated 6,000 pounds. Camus was survived by his wife and 3 children.
Garbage mountain avalanche buries squatters. Dozens of people were killed when a huge mountain of garbage collapsed in Ethiopia on Saturday. Following a deadly landslide at the Kosha garbage dump in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian authorities blame the accident on construction work for a new biogas plant. Bulldozers leveling the ground for the plant increased pressure on the landfill, causing it to collapse and engulf the homes of nearby squatters. At least 46 people were killed. Addis Ababa is home to 4 million people. The city produces some 300,000 tons of waste each year, and most of it is dumped at the Kosha landfill. That's the equivalent to the maximum takeoff weight of about 520 Airbus A380 airplanes. Kosha, which means dirt in local slang, was home to about 350 squatters living in makeshift housing built on the rubbish. Around 500 people scavenge at the 74-acre landfill, sorting through the garbage to try and make a living. Despite the country's rapidly growing economy, nearly 20 million Ethiopians still live below the poverty line set by the World Bank.
Mudslide in California highway engulfs vehicles in several feet of mud. Hundreds of motorists were stranded on Thursday as Southern California was battered by a severe thunderstorm. Around 5 p.m. on Thursday, State Route 58 along California's Tehachapi Pass was hit with several inches of rain and hail the size of golf balls. Waters quickly rose within about 20 minutes of intense showers. As the road began to flood, drivers described seeing vehicles floating in the water and being pushed into each other, before a river of mud, rocks, and debris came flowing down. The resulting chaos forced some to abandon their cars, though others stayed with their vehicles until rescuers came. The mud flow was likely caused by a lack of vegetation holding down soil, leading to rocks and sediments falling into water channels and being swept down the mountainside by torrential rains. A total of 192 vehicles were stuck on the highway, including 115 passenger cars, 75 semis, and 2 tour buses. Highway 58 is still closed as rescuers continue to excavate the mud. A flash flood warning remains in effect in several areas of Los Angeles County, as the National Weather Service says that rain could continue to fall until Saturday.
Over 175 people are missing and 14 known dead in a massive mudslide in Washington state. A landslide inundated the small community of Oso, located roughly 55 miles northeast of Seattle in Washington state on Sunday. The hill gave way after days of record-setting rains in which double the amount of annual precipitation fell in a span of just over a month.
I was coming down the hill, I just saw the darkness, like somebody wants to grab you from the, and everything was gone.
The reported death toll jumped from 3 during the first day of searching to as many as 14 bodies, as more have been recovered from the muck. Rescue workers from as far as Portland, Oregon and Vancouver, Canada are working the scene. President Barack Obama signed an emergency declaration ordering U.S. government assistance to supplement state and local relief efforts. We're still holding out hope that we're going to be able to find people that still may be alive. But keep in mind, we haven't found anybody alive in this pile since Saturday in the initial stages of our operation, says the local fire chief, Travis Hotz.
Fire department came in an emergency and told us we all had to evacuate.
We're going to lose our house. We have a brand new house down there.
More than 100 properties were hit by over 1 square mile of cascading mud, 49 of which had a house, cabin, or mobile home on them. At least 25 of these homes were believed to have been occupied year-round.
Rockslide and massive boulder kill elderly grandmother. Landslides are pretty common in mountains in Taiwan, and roads are often closed due to rockslides and mudslides during the rainy season. Unfortunately, an elderly couple were crushed by a falling boulder on their way to a hot spring spa. Mr. and Ms. Lee, although they shared the last name, they weren't related. Mr. Lee was 79 years old and Ms. Lee was 72 years old. The two were both widowers looking for a little company in their golden years. They were on a date and had decided to head out to a hot spring spa together. Unfortunately, a rockslide dropped several tons of rock down on Mr. Lee's tiny sedan as they were winding their way through the mountains, enjoying the scenic view. Ms. Lee was crushed and pronounced dead at the scene. Mr. Lee was rushed to the hospital with a crushed skull, a broken arm, broken ribs, and a broken leg, and remains in critical care.
A large boulder that broke away from a mountain in the French Alps derailed a popular tourist train on Saturday. A train derailed while traveling from Nice to Digne-les-Bains in France on the morning of February 8th. There were 34 passengers inside the 2 carriages when a large boulder broke away from the mountain and fell directly onto the train. Officials say the boulder may have weighed as much as 20 tons. The first carriage was completely pushed off the railway, while the second remained on the tracks. 2 women, identified as 1 French and 1 Russian national, were killed in the accident. 9 other passengers were injured. Reuters reports officials said it was the first such accident known on the line, and it was unclear why such a large rock fell.
5 people died after they were buried in a rockslide in the Colorado mountains on Monday. The unidentified hikers were on a trail to Agnes Bay Falls when the slide happened at about 11 a.m. Boulders, some the size of cars, crashed down onto the popular hiking trail, leaving a football field-sized gash below Mount Princeton. A 13-year-old girl survived the slide and was airlifted to a nearby children's hospital. The area has been deemed unstable, but the Chaffee County Sheriff expects rescue operations to resume Tuesday morning.
How the massive landslide in southern China was caused by a mountain of construction waste. Either because of corruption or simple laxness, officials chose to ignore the 380,000 square meters of construction debris that towered over the outskirts of one of the most populous cities in China. That is, until everything came crashing down on Sunday. A massive wave of mud and construction debris blanketed 33 buildings and scores of people who were unable to escape fast enough. This week's landslide in China comes at a time when the number of construction projects in Shenzhen has been growing rapidly, leading to the generation of an enormous amount of debris. Several years ago, what had been a quarry on Shenzhen's outskirts became a dumping site for some of this debris. Dirt was stacked on top of a natural hill, with bulldozers adding more soil onto the mound every day, until the man-made mountain reached an average height of 6 meters, or approximately the height of 3 adults. The mound of construction waste eventually became too tall and its angle too steep, which led to its collapse. Reuters reports that the dump site should have been closed this past February, but workers said mud and debris continued to be dumped there each day. Residents are pointing their fingers at gross negligence on the part of local officials. Seeing as a government-run newspaper even printed a warning last year that Shenzhen was running out of dumping space, it's hard to imagine no one was aware of this ticking time bomb.
An emergency evacuation took place on Whidbey Island on Wednesday when a landslide put the lives of dozens of seaside residents in danger. The landslide began at around 4 a.m. in the morning. Residents said they heard a loud noise like thunder before trees and dirt began sliding into the water and homes below.
Looked out and noticed that we had no more trees blocking the view and half the yard.
The landslide was about 400 to 500 yards across and wiped out the road leading to the houses located below the cliff. Residents were told to evacuate their homes. Those who had lost access to the roads were taken away by boat. Fortunately, no one was killed or hurt. The seaside properties that remain offer beautiful ocean views, but whether people will want to continue living there remains to be seen.
Days of heavy rain triggered a landslide along a main highway in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia on Tuesday, causing massive traffic jams. A landslide hit a section of the Mahamaru Highway in Malaysia, 1 kilometre from the Parliament building, around 5 p.m. Heavy downpours loosened soil, destabilising the hill slope. The soil is saturated after rainwater causes groundwater to rapidly rise. The groundwater reduces the internal shear strength of the soil. A landslide is triggered when gravity and hydraulic pressure from rainwater overwhelms the soil's resistance. Debris and soil covered all lanes, bringing traffic to a standstill. The slope was undergoing stabilisation works, which is scheduled to be completed in March. No casualties were reported.
Incredible images have surfaced of the trail of destruction wrought by a huge boulder which tore through a farmhouse in northern Italy. On January 21, a landslide sent at least 2 giant rocks tumbling into a valley in Ronchi di Termerno, causing millions of dollars worth of damage. The largest boulder came to rest in a vineyard after smashing through the barn and courtyard. A second miraculously came to rest just feet from the main part of the house and a parked car. The people living in the house at the time were all unharmed. The area has since been evacuated. It is believed that a rock tower collapsed, sending the boulders into the valley below. Italian geologists believe more rocks could still break loose from the cliff.